everyone, and welcome to another author conversation. I am Navya from White Falcon Publishing, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with an author whose words remind us that some of the most powerful stories are often found in life's quietest moments. Joining us today is Parekhit Bhattacharjee, author of Things We Never Said, a beautifully written collection of micro stories and lyrical prose that explores longing, memory, love, grief, survival, and the emotions that often remain unspoken. Rather than telling grand stories, this book gently invites readers into everyday moments and hidden emotional worlds, showing us how much meaning can exist in a pause, a silence, or a feeling left unsaid. Author Parakit, it's wonderful to have you with us today. And before we begin, I would like you to introduce yourself and to say something about your journey as a writer. Please, sir.
Great. Thank you, Navya, for having me here. As Navya already pointed out, my name is Parekhit. I'm based out of Singapore. I come from a very tiny part of India from the northeast, a beautiful state called Assam. This is my second book. I already have had a collection of short poems that I'd written, very similar in terms of the feel, emotions, like my new book, which is coming up very soon. And I'm excited to be here, and we will talk a lot more about what my book entails, the journey so far, the emotions that I'm trying to bring about with this book. So yeah, let's talk a little more about that, Navya.
Yes, yes. Okay, I'm also excited to talk about this book. So we are moving on to the questions now. Okay, so my first question from you is, so I was reading the preface. One line stayed with me. That is the distance between what we feel and what we say. So it's such a universal human experience. Was there a particular moment in your life when you realized that silence itself could become the subject of a
Uh, I think the realization came slowly rather than in one dramatic moment. Over the years, I found myself becoming more interested in pauses than in declarations. For example, in what people avoided saying or what they carried in their faces, in the posture, in the way they left a room or held back a sentence. I slowly realized that some of the deepest human experiences are never spoken. They live in pauses, in silence, and in gap between what we feel and what we say. And that's what I'm trying to bring in with this book. That's what stayed with me for the longest time, and that is eventually what has been the heart and soul of this book, I would say.
Okay, it's actually a beautiful perspective. And silence feels like, a living presence. So it is true. Okay, moving on to the next question. So, sir, your stories often focus on ordinary people, a person at a train station, someone waiting at a tea stall, a quiet face in a crowd. So many writers search for extraordinary stories, but you seem drawn to the everyday. What is it about ordinary lives that continues to inspire your writing?
I think the definition of ordinary in itself is somewhat convoluted. I think ordinary lives are never really ordinary once you look at them close enough. Person standing at a tea stall, as you mentioned, may appear unremarkable from the outside, but inside there might be so many emotions that they're going through. There might be grief, longing, memory, hope, regret, all moving at once. I've always been drawn to that hidden life, let's say. I'm less interested in the spectacle and more interested in the emotional truth. And I think the world moves too quickly past these people. And writing gives me that platform to, sort of, it's a way to pause and look again. And that's the reason why I probably sort of focus more of my writing around these people.
Okay, okay. Thank you for the answer. Okay, and like you have a background that includes communication, music, and photography. So while reading the book, I could almost feel those influences shaping the rhythm and imagery of the stories. So, do you think these creative disciplines have changed the way you observe and write about the world?
I think so. Very much. I think each of these disciplines or each of these passion points that I have had somewhat influenced the way I write. For example, communication taught me clarity. Music taught me rhythm and silence and uh, arrangement. Photography taught me how to notice this small minor details, the light and shade and the stillness. And I think all of these together sort of shape the way I observe the world today and the way I write about it. So definitely, they have a huge influence the way I imagine and narrate a story today.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay, so the next question. So the stories in this collection are remarkably brief, yet they leave a lasting emotional impact. So writing less often requires more precision. What was the challenge and perhaps the joy of telling complete emotional stories in such a condensed form?
Think first of all, thank you for talking about the fact that it leaves a lasting emotional impact, and that's the ultimate, let's say, aim or vision of my book, right? That's what I want to achieve. Well, a big part of my writing journey actually began when I started off with micro poetry on Twitter. Back when the platform used to really push to write within certain characters, I think back in the day it was 140 characters. That limitation was a gift, at least for me. It forced me to say more with less and to trust suggestions rather than just, let's say, explanations. Over time, that became part of my style. I would say the challenge with short pieces is that you have very little room to waste. Every line has to carry that weight, every word has to justify its place, why it belongs there. But there's also a joy of it, right? I mean, you begin to understand that clarity and brevity doesn't really mean smallness. With a very short piece of work, you can actually still hold a full emotional world, I would say. And that was the essence of my writing, and that kind of stayed with me. And even today, when I sit to try and write something, it usually comes in a very small package for me. I try, it's very automatic. Even when I try to think about the journey of that story itself, maybe the plot is long enough, but when I am translating that into a written format, into a story, it's always like a prose poetry, and it stayed with me forever.
Definitely. Okay. Okay, sir. So your collection moved through themes like love, misunderstanding, grief, identity, labor, memory, and survival. So when you were putting the book together, did these themes emerge naturally over time, or were you consciously building a larger emotional journey for readers?
I think the themes came naturally at first. I wasn't planning them in a, let's say, in a strict format or a template. I was just writing about people, emotions, about moments that stayed with me. But once the stories came together, I began to see there's a pattern. That's when I was sort of a little more conscious about the structure. I wanted the book to feel like, let's say, an emotional journey, not just like separate pieces of work strung together. So the themes came naturally, but after a point in time, I started shaping them into, let's say, a larger arc or pillars or narratives, and that was definitely intentional on my part.
Okay. Yes, the book did feel like a conversation rather than different voices. So, yeah, definitely. Okay, moving on to the next question. There are moments in the book that feel deeply personal, even when the stories themselves are fictional. So, as writer, we often borrow emotions from real life, right? So, how do you navigate that balance between personal experience and imagination?
It's an interesting question. I think emotion is often personal, even when the event may be not in a story, right? The space I work in. I may invent the setting, the characters, the exact situation, but the emotional pulse that comes usually comes from something more real, something that I might have seen, something that I might have felt, something that I remember, something I may have overheard or carried with me for a long time. I don't feel the need to reproduce life literally, talking about me and my life per se. But what I'm more interested in is translating the feelings that I have deep within me in a very truthful and honest way. And this is where I think the imagination gives the story a shape,
Yes.
and emotions gives it that honesty, right?
Yes.
For me, the balance lies in letting the fiction do what it does best, which is basically creating a platform that can be shared in a more broader way, instead of and sort of transforming that private feeling I have within me into a more larger, acceptable, shareable format that then I can share with the world. That's how I would probably put it.
Okay, that's beautiful. Okay, so sir, every book has a period when doubt inevitably appears. So during the writing of Things We Never Said, was there ever a moment when you questioned the project or wondered whether these quiet stories would resonate with readers?
Yes, definitely. As a first time publisher, I would say, I was always in doubt, definitely. And well, quiet work always brings doubt, right? There were times when I even wondered if these stories were too small or too understated for the readers. I understand that most of the readers are used to more, let's say, larger than life kind of storytelling. We live in a time when often it rewards louder work, and this book is not about that. This book is basically telling people to slow down and lean
Yes.
in. What really reassured me was the, let's say, the response from the White Falcons editorial team. When I shared my manuscript with them, they looked through it. They said the stories were strong enough. They should definitely be published. It meant a lot to me. It gave me that confidence and made me
Exactly.
trust the book more. So yes, the doubt was there, but once the stories were seen and understood in that way, I felt more certain, more confident, and I continued with the project.
Okay, thank you for sharing your honest experience. Moving on to the next question. So, I was particularly struck by how much attention the book gives to people who are often overlooked or misunderstood. So, do you see your writing in some way as an act of giving visibility to emotions and experiences that don't always receive attention?
So it's a good, I would say, observation. Yes, I think so, but not in a grand or in a performative way, but more in a deeply human way, I would say. I'm interested in the people that the world moves past quickly, as I said before, the ones whose, let's say, labor is invisible, whose grief is very private, no one really sees it, identifies with it, whose identity is often misread, whose emotional life is never treated as important enough to stop for. Writing for me becomes a way of pausing and, besides them, right? Of looking at them with care, of saying that in this life, they too need that depth, they too need that recognition. Their feeling too matters. And that is, I think, a way that I've tried to narrate my stories as well. If in if by doing so I can change even a couple of people to stop, observe these people, admire them, then I think I've made justice to the book, I would say.
No, that's a beautiful way of looking at literature, creating space for experiences that might otherwise go unnoticed. So that's beautiful. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So, looking back now after completing the manuscript and seeing it become a published book, was there a story or section that become especially meaningful to you? Perhaps one that stayed with you longer than the others?
Oh well, you're asking me to choose a favorite
Yes.
out of all that I've written. That's a tough one. Um, A few stories stayed with me for different reasons, but the ones that stayed the longest were often the ones that where silence played the most important part of my work.
Okay,
The
okay.
stories where a lot was left unsaid felt bigger when it was unspoken, right? And that was, I think, some of the favorite work that I have done. I'm also very attached to stories that overlooked lives or emotions or dignity of people. And those are some of the very strong foundations of the book itself. More than one story, I would say. I think my favorite section would be the final section, which is what remains. It was very meaningful for me because it kind of holds memory, it holds loss, it holds what stays behind. And in many ways, those are the feelings that are very closest to the heart of the book and to me. And therefore, I would say if I were to choose, maybe I would choose that section as being the most, the deepest that has touched me when I wrote that.
Yeah. It's always fascinating to hear which piece remain closest to an author's heart. So thank you for sharing this. Okay. So my next question is, the title "Things We Never Said" carries so much emotional weight, and if readers could carry just one feeling, thought, or realization with them after finishing the final page, what would you hope that would be?
Uh, I think one thing that I hope that it leaves people with is deeper tenderness towards other people, right? Reminder that what we see on the surface is not always the whole story. That silence is not emptiness. Restraint can carry enormous emotional weight. And perhaps also this realization that many of us are living with things we never said, but yet those unsaid things really shape our lives, our relationships, our memory, pretty much everything. So if the book can leave readers feeling a little softer, a little more attentive, a little more aware of those hidden emotional worlds that they live in, I think that would mean a lot to me, and that would mean a lot to all the stories that I've written.
Okay, that's wonderful takeaway. Okay, sir. So before we conclude, I would also love to hear a little about your publishing journey with White Falcon Publishing. So every book journey is a collaborative experience, and feedback always helps us grow. So looking back at your experience with our team, what is that one thing that you truly appreciated, and one area where you feel we can improve even further as a publishing house?
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much. I think it's been an amazing journey working with White Falcon. Absolutely. I can't wait to write my next book and then partner you guys once over again. I think one thing I truly appreciated was a sense of support and responsiveness during the entire journey. So bringing a book in this world is both exciting as well as vulnerable, especially when it is deeply personal in the way you're writing that story, the
Yes, yes,
tone that you're setting it up, right?
yes.
And to have a team helping us, willing to engage through the entire process, telling us what we need to do to move things with care is the best thing that could happen. So definitely that's the I would say the most appreciative thing that I would say about White Falcon. I don't seem to have improvement area, but maybe one thing where you can further improve it. You've done pretty well, but something that could be even better is to be to provide a little more clarity and guidance at each stage of the journey,
Okay.
especially around timelines, design choices, distribution, post publication, visibility, PR, marketing, and so on and so forth. Especially for first time authors who are navigating this world for the first time, they have zero clue how to go about doing any of it. While there has been a lot of handholding around that, probably a little more systematized
Yes, yes.
process or a template would be even better. But as I said, no complaints. It has been an amazing journey working with White Falcon, and I would love to work again with you guys for the next edition of whatever I write in the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the honest feedback, sir. And thanks for the words of appreciation. And about the drawbacks, we will definitely work on them. So we are done with the questions now. And at the last, I want to thank you for joining us today and for sharing the stories, reflections, and experiences behind things we never said. It's been truly a thoughtful conversation, and I'm sure our viewers have enjoyed getting a deeper glimpse into the book. So before we wrap up, is there anything you would like to say to the readers or viewers? Just a last message.
Uh, the book, I hope it touches you just the way it has touched me when I wrote each and every story. I'm happy to get any kind of feedback from you, ways I could have told those stories differently, or you'd have loved to hear something else from me next time. Happy to get all of that information. I think White Falcon team will also share my social handles later when we publish the book and we launch it. So feel free to reach out to me, and happy to chat with all of you. And yes, go and read the book. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the message. And thank you once again for joining us today. It has been an absolutely pleasure speaking with you. And to our dear viewers, if today's discussion resonated with you, I highly encourage you to explore Things We Never Said and experience its beautiful collection of stories for yourself. So the book is available on Amazon, Flipkart, and White Falcon Publishing stores. So do read it and share it with fellow readers. And thank you for watching. See you in the next author conversation.
Thank you for hosting me, Navya. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.